Hello, everyone, and welcome to UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts. I am Blaine Gilmer here with Jed May as we are once again covering UGA football recruiting. And Jed, it is jam-packed once again, as even though it's a dead period, there's offers being extended and all kinds of stuff going on. And in particularly, if you saw there with our overlay there that we had at the beginning, Coach Uzo-Diribe has hit the ground running for UGA and at this coaching staff.
Absolutely. I mean, he's come in and, step one is, or there's kind of two steps. You got to reach out to the guys that are already targeted by the coaching staff and say, hey, introduce yourself, say there's still priorities and all that. And then you've got to offer, guys that fit what you want to do with the position. And he's offered, I've got all these tabs open on the top of my, of Google right here of all these guys that Coach Uzo-Diribe has extended offers to, including one that went out literally, Blaine, right as we were coming on the air a second ago. Georgia offered Colton Vasek out of Austin Westlake at 23, weak side defensive end. I mean, you guys can, parse that up, mean it whatever you want to. He's 6'6", 230 pounds, so sounds like an outside linebacker to me. But the grind never stops, especially for those guys trying to, bring in the guys they want in these classes.
And people see the salaries and stuff. That news came out today, Jed, of a bunch of assistant coaches getting some salary bumps and things along that lines. But one, some people even like to make comments about that kind of stuff. And one, I don't begrudge anybody for making money. Guess what? If somebody's willing to pay you something, then you do you, man. You go ahead and get what somebody's willing to pay you. But also, man, when you equate it out, probably average a lot of this stuff out over the hours that these guys put in. I think well worth the time and effort that they're putting in some of these big salaries. And I think Coach Uzo-Diribe is fitting right in to start off with, as you said. I mean, it's been numerous amounts of prospects to start off with that he's been offering.
Yeah, and they all have a similar mold, 6'4", 210. Let's see. Come on, internet. 6'6", 230, 6'4", 220, 6'4", 215, 6'6", 240, and then this most recent one to Colton Bassett out of Texas, 6'6", 230. So what do those guys have in common? They're long. They're built. They obviously have room to grow. All those guys I just read off were 2023s with one exception. So not about to graduate high school imminently by any means. So but they all have a type, and that's one thing. When you get these position coaches in here, they want to put their stamp on whatever position group it is, and obviously Coach Uzo-Diribe is trying to do that here right off the bat.
Absolutely. And there is some unique circumstances to these, right? When we talk about some international flair, some guys that are originally from outside the country, even have some commonalities with Coach Uzo-Diribe himself. So you had some details on that earlier on the UGA on UGAsports.com. So go ahead and tell everybody kind of what's going on that aspect of things.
Yeah, man, these two guys. So they're the 2023 Desmond Umeozulu. I apologize to anyone out there.
Mr. Desmond.
Mr. Desmond, yeah, Mr. DU. He's 6'6", 230 pounds, 4-star in the class of 23. Originally from Nigeria, he is now playing his football at Flowers High School in Springdale, Maryland. And then in 2024, the 24 class, there is Zena Umeozulu, who is at obviously Allen High School in Texas, a huge power down there. 6'4", 220 pounds. And I traded some messages with Zena after his Georgia offer came out a couple weeks ago. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I love Coach Uzo-Diribe and that kind of thing." I was like, "Oh well, what did y'all talk about? What's conversations like?" And he actually said himself, and I believe he and Desmond are related by cousins. They had a Twitter interaction. Desmond said his cousin was great when he got the offer. Anyway,
I mean, what's the chances of guys named Umeozulu that
exactly.
are both being recruited highly?
Exactly.
So I mean, I don't know.
Exactly. Zena said, "Hey, me and Coach Uzo-Diribe, we both have the same Nigerian heritage. I believe it's pronounced Igbo, Igbo, Nigerian heritage." And that's, you talk about coaches. Blaine, we've talked about it on this before. Coaches relating to these guys and being like an older brother, a father figure, whatever you want to be. How cool is it when you're this young man's parents or guardian or I don't know understand or know what his situation is, but to have a coach that relates to you on that kind of level has got to be pretty special for those guys.
No doubt. I mean, you're looking at obviously the hot topic issue. Even this past week with at the head coaches meeting and Greg Sankey getting interviewed by Paul Feinbaum has been on the NIL and the coaches sparring back and forth with things, throwing barbs at one another. But still, ultimately, Jed, a lot of this comes down to relationships, right? And you have to have that kind of built into where it, because guess what, the NIL deals are going to even themselves out over time. It's not going to be a big disparity one way or another. There'll be the elites, right, that are going to be kind of separated maybe from that second tier, but amongst the elites there'll probably be 15, 20 schools in the country that are going to be right there with each other when it comes to these NIL deals. So it's still going to come down to how do you develop guys and get them ready for the NFL, and then also the relationships that they build, and having a common ancestry with people. That's definitely a big deal there. But Kirby Smart in his press conference around signing day, Jed, I believe he was the one that said that there's a lot more commas in those checks once you get to the league and after school with the Georgia Alumni Network and all that kind of stuff. So he's still preaching to guys, hey, come here, get developed. You're going to go to the league. You're going to go to the league, and also we're going to if not, we're going to help you get a great degree here at the University of Georgia, and you'll end up having a good career and good living that way. So those are things that are still being preached. Those are the things that they're still going to push, and Coach Uzo-Diribe will be no different from that. Jed, also this week, there's been some movement on some quarterback offers and things like that. I'd put out my big board of quarterbacks earlier this week, and Georgia, they've been talking to the classes of 2024 and beyond. They have to reach out to the coaches right now, right? And they can't until the September 1st of their junior year. They can't really be the one. The coaches can't reach out to them. They have to initiate the contact. Well, Ryan Montgomery is a class of 2025 quarterback out of Findlay, Ohio, that has offers from Michigan, has offers from Ohio State, Penn State, Tennessee, Georgia Tech, a lot of high-profile schools. And he called up Todd Monken this week and was having a good productive conversation with him. He's a guy that Jed, as a freshman, threw for 2,400 yards, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So even though he's a class of 2025 guy, it seems like it can never get started too early when you're talking about the quarterback position.
No, I mean, we've talked, I mean, how many guys, and it's funny because, how many, when you talk to your average recruiting, person that follows recruiting out there, how many 24 running backs can you name or 24 corners? But I bet people know Dylan Raiola's name or Ryan Montgomery, or how often have we talked about Julian Lewis on this show? This kid isn't even in high school. Yeah, I mean, he's not even in high school yet. And people know him, and that's not to disparage him because he's a very talented prospect, but I mean, this kid can't even drive yet. I mean, it's crazy how early it gets started with these quarterbacks. I mean, heck, Arch Manning. How long have we known Arch Manning's name? And obviously, he's got a different circumstance with obviously who his family is and everything. But I mean, I remember seeing videos of that kid when he was in 6th grade, 7th grade, and I wasn't even a recruiting, nut like I am now. So it's especially at that quarterback position, you've got to establish those bonds early because I mean, it's the most important position on the field. There's no real secret about it.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely it's the position that drives everything, right?
Right.
When you're talking about a quarterback, obviously it drove a lot of conversation this year for the University of Georgia, and Stetson Bennett ended up delivering when it mattered the most for Georgia in the national championship game this year. But it's a quarterback driven sport, right? It's a sport that everybody wants to know who's next on that. Speaking of quarterbacks in the 2025 class, Jed, out of California, they offered a young man out of California this past week in class of 2025. Also today, Christopher Vizinha. Okay, Christopher Vizinha. He's in the class of 2023. Gets an offer. I talked to Christopher when he visited Georgia earlier on, and there was a little bit of mutual interest there. Nothing really crazy. Thought he had a good visit, things like that. But now months later, they circle back and they pull the trigger on the offer on Vizinha, I believe is how you pronounce it. It's Vizzina, class of 2023, 4-star quarterback out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Alabama.
Alabama, dang, Alabama, but when it comes down to it, the 2023 quarterback position, like we talked about in the big board, right? You got Arch Manning, head and shoulders number one. Is the one they're going for. That rumor that went out there with ESPN or whoever it was that put out it was down to 2, got shot down, I think, by every outlet out there. Just with it became meme worthy. It was great to see how that went down in a hurry, because certainly not down to Texas and Alabama there. Georgia's still firmly in the mix, and even other schools. His coach Nelson Stewart told me that other schools are even still trying to get in the mix with late hires of, Billy Napier and Brian Kelly at LSU, things along those lines. So it's still a fluid situation there, but when you see Georgia offering someone like a Christopher Vizinha out of Birmingham, Alabama, 4-star quarterback, even though they've got Arch and Nico that Nico Iamaleava that they're going after as well. And Dante Moore from Michigan got a recent offer from those guys. So from the University of Georgia. So the quarterback situation in the class of 2023 is very much so Arch or bust, I believe. And then they're still going after some contingency plans, right? Because you could never put all your eggs totally in one basket, in my opinion, Jed.
Right. Yeah. I think Arch Manning is option 1A, and then 1B, you've got Nico Iamaleava, and I probably put Dante Moore at 1B. I think you'd probably agree with that. And then below that, you've got maybe Vizinha is there, or Vizinha, excuse me, is there. Probably Dylan Lonergan is there.
Somebody's going to mess up terribly trying to pronounce Vizinha's
last
name.
We're playing the name game.
It's going to become a Seinfeld deal where
we're just going to title this episode "Name Game" when we put it on the board. With
not good right there with Vizinha. So we apologize to the Vizinha
family. We've got Marcel Reed there too, out of Nashville. There's contingency plans or backup plans, whatever you want to put it. And this has been a topic on the board this week. Arch Manning is not going to announce till later this summer, maybe this fall. Nico Iamaleava is going to make that decision, I believe April or May, pretty relatively soon. So, who is going to?
It's going to be like a round of Texas Hold'em, right? It's going to be all right. Who's gonna put them all out there and make sure they're going all in, or who's going to fold when it comes down to pushing the chips into the middle. So we'll see on that. The quarterback that I was talking about in the class of 2025 that they offered this past week is Steele Pizzella. Going to the Italian heritage at the quarterback position, Vizinha and Pizzella. So they're going after his out of Simi Valley High School in California. Boasts proudly on Twitter that he is a 4.0 GPA. So the young man is a scholar athlete to boot, Jed. So that's something that absolutely that's something to be proud of for sure. But he got offered on Valentine's Day by Todd Monken. So you could say that Monken's a little sweet on Pizzella. Who knows?
Showing the love.
That's showing the love for sure. But when it comes down to it, guys, one of the reasons that we come on here is to answer questions from the UGA Sports Vault. So we're going to do that right now. But just so you know, if you're watching on YouTube and you're not a member of the UGA Sports Vault, first go over to UGAsports.com. Go ahead and sign up. You're going to miss out on a bunch of things that the breaking news that happens on the team side with Dash and Roddy and those guys. And then, of course, all our recruiting coverage that we're constantly going out with, like a interview I had with Whit Weeks, who's a Georgia legacy. And then also on the YouTube side, I wanted to say, go ahead and drop some comments in here because we will put those up as we go throughout the show. But without further ado, Jed, this show was supposed to be, of course, on Valentine's Day. Jed had him a little date he had to take care of on Valentine's Day night. So we postponed it to Wednesday. We'll be back to Mondays next week.
We swear this time. We swear.
Yeah, we'll get it. We swear we will be back to Mondays next week. But Jed, let's go ahead and get the first question here. Let me change my
Caliente
brand color.
Dog going with the Valentine's Day theme. Which 2023 recruits like us right now, and would definitely go to the prom with us today if it was prom.
Man, Jed, who do you think is in that category of being the ones that are really feeling Georgia at this moment?
I don't know, man. I didn't get a date to my prom, so maybe I'm not the best one to ask. But let's see.
Shouldn't do that when I'm drinking coffee. When I'm drinking a sip of coffee, you should not say stuff like that.
Let's see. I think we could put Madden Sanker in that category, right?
I do too.
Guard, South Paulding High School. I would probably put Justice Haynes in that category. Although Clemson is obviously there as well.
Ohio State.
Ohio State, right? I would put probably Janelle Aguero in that category right now. And I mean, I don't know about, I wouldn't pull the trigger on a prom date, but if you're trying to get some roses together and start planning, maybe, I mean, Cormani McLean with how well that visit went in January, it kind of surprised us just to even, see that he was coming, and then everything that's come out about that visit. Seems like Georgia really killed it, and now they're up on that top level with, Florida and USC and all those guys. So, Haynes and Sanker and Aguero are locks. And if you want to go big, maybe start getting some chocolates together, get your, balloons ready for a possible, romantic proposal. And I think you could throw Kamani McLean in there too.
Absolutely. I think two other guys that I would mention. I think the hire of Brian McClendon really has helped out a lot with Brandon Ennis. I think he feels really, really good about Georgia at this point. I think he liked Georgia before, but now he gives him a little bit more incentive to kind of take a harder look. And then CJ Allen as well, who's out of the linebacker out of Barnesville, Georgia, Lamar County High School. He really, really likes the Dogs, and Coach Schumann has really started to build a strong relationship with him. He's a player that reminds me of how he plays, and similar to high school, maybe not quite as tall, but a Roquan Smith type sideline to sideline, just dominant player. Of course, he does play in a smaller division, so he'd have to make a little bit of an adjustment. He plays in Double-A ball here in Georgia, but nevertheless, still a very, very good player. All right, DB Dog 7. What we got, Jed?
Who is the number one target on the board other than Arch? Is it one of the top receivers like Ennis? And are there any elite 2023 receiver prospects in Georgia? Who are the can't miss in-state prospects?
Yeah, so when you're talking about who's one of the top wide receiver prospects like Brandon Ennis, let's see. I know Santana Fleming is a guy who's really, from the Sunshine State down there, that has really been someone that Georgia's been hard on. Jed, we were talking about this before. Any guys that come to mind that stand out to you as far as the top receivers in this class, maybe that Georgia has a legitimate shot with?
Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, not that this is, breaking news to anybody, but there's a lot of talent in that South Florida area. You mentioned Brandon Ennis, Santana Fleming, Hakeem Williams is down there as well. He's got Georgia in his top 8 or whatever it is.
Jalen
Brown is down there. There's one more that I'm missing. Point is, there's a lot of guys down there, and like you mentioned just a minute ago, Brian McClendon's got connections all over the country anyway. But the fact that he was on that Miami staff for a minute there and started, building those relationships with those kids there, that's going to mean something for these kids. So, trying to think elite receiver prospects in Georgia.
Not necessarily. I mean, Caden Lee is a 4-star.
Yeah.
Caden Lee's a 4-star that's moved to Kennesaw Mountain that I think is going to be one of the better ones in the state of Georgia. But in terms of overall, Braylon James out of DeVal, Texas, is someone that Todd Monken and Kirby Smart went out to his high school to check in on during the contact period. The coach out there is the former coach of the national team for IMG. That was his last job before he left to take this job at DeVal. So DeVal, one of those big high schools out there, Jed, that's got a full indoor practice facility, all that kind of good stuff. So definitely someone there that you want to obviously keep an eye on. Braylon James, I think, is someone that Georgia would obviously love to have in this class. So, you know, and then one more that is jumping off the charts in terms of literally and figuratively in terms of his athleticism that you kind of I think spoke to recently is Kyle Casper out of Arizona. Did you see the dunk videos that he put out of the dunk contest? They called it a dunk contest, but I think it was more just a dunk exhibition of
Yeah.
Kyle Casper at his high school. It was some unbelievable hops out of that guy.
Yeah, he's from Arizona. And it's like I mentioned a minute ago, Brian McClendon's got these connections all over the country. Casper knows McClendon going back to Oregon, and obviously that's a West Coastish area. Oregon, Arizona, not super close from my limited geography knowledge, but
It's
yeah,
closer than here, right?
closer than here, exactly. So I would not Georgia. Casper put out a top 10 or 8 or something like that. Georgia's in it. I expect Georgia to receive a visit at some point, either this spring or this summer, unofficial probably first, and then if they can get him back for an official, that's when you really start trying to think, okay, Georgia might have a shot with this guy. But that relationship with McClendon's already there, so that's a good first step to have.
Oh, and one more note on a receiver is Aiden Mizell. I spoke to. He's out of Boone High School in Orlando. Teammate of now current Georgia player Ja'Cory Thomas, who's early. No, it wasn't early enrollee. I don't think he signed early, but not early enrollee. Ja'Cory Thomas, now has signed with Georgia. His teammate Aiden Mizell is really blown up. And Georgia pulled the trigger on an offer. They love his speed, so he does meet that category. He's a track guy as well. So Aiden Mizell out of Boone High School in Orlando is a name to keep an eye on. Next one we got here is Mikey P 1983. Heading into summer, what are the key dates we should pay attention to in regards to the recruiting calendar? I mean, Jed, when you come to March, I don't think it's going to be a specific, big day or weekend. I think sporadically you're going to see guys coming in just kind of constantly. I've had several already tell me they're wanting to come in and watch spring practice. I mean, and also wanting to see the spring game, so that I think what's the date on the spring game again?
April 16th.
Yeah, the April 16th. So that's definitely one you want to circle. And then of course when you get to the 1st of June, that's when visits will start up again, and then they'll have things like the scavenger hunt and all that kind of stuff. But I think leading through spring practice and into G Day, and then I think in the 1st of June, I believe, is when they'll start cranking those up. But Whit Weeks, I was speaking to him. He told me April, May, as soon as he can take an official visit, he's going to take one. So, I mean, you'll start getting some official visits in the spring. But I would say the main date to circle right now is G Day, and seeing, who do they bring in there to kind of see them, those guys compete right now.
Absolutely. And, I think Dane or somebody had a post in our group text. God, I can't talk about the guys that from this national championship team that went to 93K Day a few years ago, and I would expect this G Day to rival that in terms of the enthusiasm and passion, obviously coming out of the national championship. So the visitor list for that game is going to be huge, I'm sure. I'm sure Georgia's going to try to lure some top talent in. I don't know off the top of my head if that's late enough for that to be possibly an official visit weekend. But either way, I mean, that's going to be a huge weekend for visits with guys coming into town.
No doubt. Let's get to our next one here. We got PA Dog 610. PA, we appreciate you tuning in. You always provide some good questions on here. Should there be concern over not having a secondary coach currently in the class of 2023, or no issue since I assume Muschamp is taking over making contacts? Jed, I'll be honest with you. I don't think that it's been that big of a hit at all. Like, I think obviously Jamil Adai did a fine job for the Georgia Bulldogs, help them win a national championship. But I think Kirby Smart, Will Muschamp, were doing a lot of even Todd Hartley was some of the guys, because Hartley had his class kind of pseudo wrapped up, even though Delp didn't really announce till a little bit later on. I think everybody kind of knew that one was in the bag, and even Todd Hartley was helping recruit guys like Jaheim Singletary. Dale McGee pitches in because he's got a more limited pool at running backs to have to recruit. So I think there's takes a village, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? And and Georgia attacks the DB group quite well.
Absolutely. Hey, PA Dog, I've got a Primanti Brothers shirt on, so shout out to Pennsylvania right there. But yeah, I mean, there was literally an offer, just went scrolling by on Twitter a little while ago. Gosh, I'm not gonna be able to find it now, but somebody said after talking with Will Muschamp, I'm blessed to receive an offer from Georgia. So you got a former safety, Will Muschamp, Kirby Smart. I mean, those guys are so involved with the recruiting anyway, and they are so involved with the defensive backs, obviously in practice and all that kind of stuff, that I don't think it's like you said, a huge hit at all. I think it's going to be important whenever the new secondary coach is hired that he immediately starts reaching out this process. Like we talked about with Coach Uzo-Diribe earlier, building those relationships with either the current commits or guys that are really going after the 23 class, Kamani McLean, like I just mentioned, AJ Harris, Tony Mitchell, Jalil Hurley, all those guys. But as of right now, no. As far as Georgia, as far as whether it affects whether Georgia's in the top group for a lot of these top guys, no, I don't think it's been a major impact at all so far.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think they're going to be just fine when it comes to the secondary side of recruiting things. All right, Jed, what's our next one say here?
Yeah. Also, the offer is Jacoby Davis, by the way. Just saw it come back up again. But should there be? Oh, this is the same one. Should there be a concern over not having a secondary coach for the 2020?
So they
But
both asked
on
the
that
same
topic,
question here. Hey, Helifano, or maybe I copied the wrong question. Anyways, that might be user error there. Here we go. Scuffletown Dog. He goes, as far as running backs for 2023, looks like we take two. Yes, I agree with that. Ruben seems to still be favored to Texas, even though he's visiting a lot. Haynes should come to us. So Scuffletown's just laying out his projections here, man. Scuffletown's telling us what's going to happen. He's asking about Trayon Webb. I think Trayon Webb is one that the emotions, the feelings kind of go up and down, right? He came back after decommitting from Oklahoma, came back and really was all excited about Georgia after his visit there recently in January. Since then, he's kind of gotten away from Georgia, and now there's some other people trying to shoehorn their way in there. But you got to feel like with the relationship, Jed, that Del McGee and Todd Hartley have with Trayon Webb, I mean, they've both been in contact with him and recruiting him since he was in the 8th grade.
yeah, and this could be one of those ones that kind of shapes up like Kristen Miller's last year. There's ups and downs. Other schools trend up, trend down, but Georgia always maintains like a background presence. And obviously Trayon Webb's situation is a little different because he has been committed to Georgia before. But it's like you said, the relationships there with Kirby Smart, Del McGee, all those guys. I mean, I think, and also there's guys. I mean, Jaheim Singletary just went up to Georgia from Jacksonville. So there's that pipeline there as well. So I don't know. I think Georgia likes where they sit with him. I definitely think Trayon Webb is more likely to end up in the class than Ruben Owens at this very second. And same goes for Richard Young. I don't see Richard Young ending up at Georgia either, as of right now. So I think he's the guy that they're gonna try to get to complement Justice Haynes, who we both think Georgia leads for right now. But we'll see. I think it's like Kristen Miller said, consistency was key in Georgia landing him. And I think that's going to be true for Trayon Webb too, if Georgia's going to land his commitment.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, remains to be seen if after spring practice, who knows? Auburn is like Auburn is a absolute dumpster fire right now with what all's been going on. Coaches still continuing to leave and all that kind of stuff, and the embattled Brian Harsin. Who's to say something doesn't happen in the spring? And over there, Tank Bigsby sees, hey, this ain't going to be a good situation, and he doesn't decide to enter the transfer portal. I'm sure if that were to happen, Georgia would be absolutely all over him, and Georgia may have some movement out of their backfield if that were to happen. So with other guys potentially transferring out. So I think you still have to, before getting too far ahead with this class of 2023 and how many you got to see, let's see what happens here when it comes to after spring and the second wave, so to speak, to borrow a COVID term, the second wave of transfers coming out through there. So we'll see what happens there with the running back. Scuffletown also had a follow-up. So what are y'all's thoughts on getting Deuce to go with Bowers, Washington, and Lucky? Man, I don't even know if Deuce Robinson will end up playing football, Jed. I mean, he's a very talented baseball prospect. Has major league talent from everything I'm hearing from people, pundits out there, that he could end up playing at getting drafted pretty high. And then of course you got Pierce Spurl in there, but I think with Lawson Lucky and Brock Bowers there for another year, and then of course Lawson Lucky's going to come in with Pierce Spurlin, I think it would have to be some significant attrition in that tight end room if you do see them bring in 3 tight ends this year.
Yeah, because that's been part of, when you spoke with Walker Lyons as well, that was something.
Yeah.
Georgia just talked to him a few weeks ago and he said, yeah, Coach Hartley told him they're expecting guys to leave. They want to add 3 in that 23 class. But, when you've
then
got
Walker
guys,
Lyons comes out and drops the top 6 and Georgia's not in it.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's, it's a hard sell when you've already, Pierce Spurlin is, he's so, we've both seen him play. He's a very, very talented pass catcher. Lawson Lucky, very talented as well. And obviously Bowers will be there. Oscar it's a very hard sell for these guys, basically, when you're one of the top guys at your position to come in. And I don't know. I think it's going to be, and like you said, Deuce Robinson might not even play football. There's that angle too. So I don't know. I think, and tight end could be something that Georgia ends up addressing via the transfer portal as well. If you can't get a Deuce Robinson or make a late charge with Walker Lyons, whatever, that could be something that they try to look at the transfer portal if none of these other guys work out. But
and it would have to be other guys really, heading out in droves. It'd have to be something like a Seether and Washington and all them deciding to bolt. But Washington may be the only Washington and Delp are both good. They may be 2 of the only healthy tight ends in the room, with Brock Bowers being out for spring. So could be a lot of Darnell Washington featured once again in the spring after his viral moment where he just pulverized Dan Jackson into the Sanford Stadium Dooley Field turf there, Jed, and little would anybody know that at that point Dan Jackson would end up being
I remember
the leading convoy for Keely Ringo.
I remember watching that play. I was like, man, who is this little guy that Darnell Washington just ran over? Dan Jackson doesn't have any business trying to tackle Darnell Washington. He's like one of the most, ends up being one of the most important guys in the secondary, just stepping in out of nowhere. And obviously what he did on special teams. And it's crazy, man. It's the stories. How crazy of a story do you get than Stetson Bennett? So you never know.
Absolutely. It's a team that was one thing about this national championship, is the way that it went down for Georgia. You have to feel like, with the history of the CFP, right, and some of the unbelievable offenses and one side of the ball kind of controlling things, this was one of the more complete team driven national championships that has been seen in a while. So it was a definitely an interesting roster management and makeup of this team, and Georgia's going to continue to work on reloading. That's what we're here talking about. MDD 31, Florida and LSU now players for Manning. All I can tell you, Jed, is I know that Nelson Stewart, the head coach at Isidore Newman, told me that those guys were definitely trying to get involved. Anything on your end that would make you think that they're getting into the sphere of influence, so to speak?
Yeah, like you said, why would you not try to get in with Arch Manning? I'm assuming we're talking about Arch. I don't know if there's any other Mannings out there that people are interested in, but yeah, Billy Napier obviously is he's going to try his best. Brian Kelly he's a
Louisiana guy, Billy Napier,
right? So I'm sure he's got a relationship with the Mannings. Brian Kelly, I'm sure, has crossed paths with the Mannings at some point. But yeah, I still believe it's, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, right there at the top. Ole Miss is relevant. Clemson was relevant, maybe not so much anymore, but I still think it's that same group. But obviously, it's February, and Arch. It's unique when you were talking about these quarterbacks earlier. That you recruit them out farther, but quarterbacks also decide earlier usually than a lot of these other guys because they want to bring guys with them and recruit the rest of their classes. So Arch Manning being the number one guy in this class is deciding relatively late, pushing this thing into the summer or early fall. So, there's plenty of time for schools like Florida and LSU to be involved. So,
Well, and let's be honest too, how it goes with recruiting. Commitments are just that. They're just verbal
right.
acknowledgments, right? So
And
I would imagine when Arch Manning makes his decision, you would see a rash of flips, one way or
yeah,
another from certain areas. So there will be plenty shuffling along the deck of the recruiting ship of 2023 once that decision goes down for sure. But like you mentioned, Jed, that decision of Nico
fascinating.
Iamaleava when he makes his decision, that's just going to be a game changer, right? Because it's going to say, okay, here's one of the, if arguably the best. I mean, he's not. It's not like Arch is here and everybody else is a mile underneath him. Arch is
Mhm.
unbelievably talented, but Nico at 6'6" and the way that he can throw the ball and navigate the pot inside and outside the pocket, he's extremely talented too. So that'll be a huge piece that comes off the board and maybe the first domino to fall, so to speak. Cannon 2245. If Arch Manning did not have the famous last name, would he still be ranked as the number one overall prospect in the country? If not, where does his skill set and upside rank him? Jed, we were talking about this beforehand. Um, I'll let you give your thoughts first, and then I'll kind of supplement off of that. But what do you think if having seen Arch's film and stuff like that, do you feel like if you didn't know his name, would you rank him as the number one player in the country?
I mean, think I think so. I mean, I am far from a talent scout, evaluator, whatever, but he just looks how a quarterback should look. And the thing is, he's not the typical. I mean, I'm going to bring up his last name again, but he's also got the wheels that his uncles didn't have. He's a true. And I mean, dual threat might be a little bit extreme, but he's got the ability to move when he needs to. So I think so. I mean, but it's like you said a minute ago. Nico Iamaleava is very good. Dante Moore is very good. But I think Arch Manning has got him edged out. And in our rankings that just came out, I believe Manning is 1, Dante Moore is 6, I believe, and Nico is like 12. I mean, they're all kind of bunched there at the top. But yeah, I think Arch Manning is has got him beat right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would still have Arch as the number one quarterback in the class of 2023 if I didn't know his name. Not saying that would affect my decision one way or another, but I mean, honestly, I don't know if he's the overall number one
That's
player.
fair.
I think
Yeah.
that's kind of subjective at certain times. But when you talk about talent and how you judge that talent, right? When you talk about a quarterback, I think you look one first. How does he handle pressure? Right. What are his feet like? Accuracy, ball placement. Okay. Arch Manning does not have the most. He doesn't have just a howitzer attached to his right shoulder. But when it comes down to it, he's got elite ball placement. He runs a true laser timed 4.6 40 that we saw against some tremendous athletes, team from the Tampa area that he was really able to pull away from on a national broadcast. I think that showed off his athleticism. And he's got those typewriter feet in the pocket. I mean, he's always, whether he's on platform, off platform, having to move, he's always able to be in a position to throw. And that's something that even Peyton Manning is, slow as he was, when he would move or did have to, he would be able to stop, set his feet and throw in a quick manner. Eli Manning as well. So that pedigree, that bloodline, Jed, I mean, you can call it a help to him, but it also, uh, there's just natural abilities that are going to come because of that. And I think he's also got some of that explosivity that his dad, Cooper, had playing wide receiver before he had his injury and got hurt. Also, one thing I'd like to point out too is he's a little bit different from the Mannings with the attitude that he has. I don't know if you've watched the highlights and stuff, but he scores a touchdown, runs over a dude, and he like high steps and gets a little attitude going in the end zone there, a little celebratory deal. So the competitive streak is certainly there for sure. But I don't know. I think when you come down to it, guys like TJ Shanahan, honestly, could be the number one overall. I think Georgia needs to go after him tremendously. But being in the state of Texas there, Texas A&M and Texas will be strong there as well. Jaden Wayne is a guy who could be considered for the number one overall prospect, in my opinion. Brandon Ennis, with the type of athlete he is. So there's several that are right there in the running, but I would have Arch Manning, regardless of his last name, as the number one quarterback in the class. All right. So Jed, what we got here?
From Mikey P, 1983, thoughts on Whit Weeks? Blaine, I'm going to turn it to you on that one because you're the one that talked to him.
Yeah, I talked to Whit yesterday, put a story out on him today. So that's like I said, we're getting interviews with these guys. We're getting insights. He was offered on January 15th, the day that Georgia celebrated their national championship, or the parade and the deal in the stadium there, the celebration. And Whit, growing up in Oconee County over there, just literally less than 20 minutes, from where he lives, is where the stadium is. And he mentioned that he'd been to Athens a ton in his life, and he had never seen anything like it. It was an unbelievable environment. He thought that was great. But Whit Weeks is 6'2", 205 pounds. He's going to play inside linebacker at the next level. Pretty much every college wants him to. Maybe a couple talking to him about outside linebacker, but he's a guy who he can cover sideline to sideline, shows great dexterity and hands, on offense as well. So he's a guy who has ball skills. He's able to cover tight ends, running backs, slot receivers. He's just got that quickness and athleticism. And on that day, that celebration day, Kirby Smart brought him into his office. So here you got the head coach at Georgia, by the way, where Whit Weeks' dad played, David Weeks, played, that wins its first national championship in 41 years, celebrates it. And on that day, they bring you in to his office, and Kirby Smart offered Whit Weeks that day. So Georgia's definitely a top 3, top 5 school for Whit Weeks. LSU, his brother just transferred from Virginia to LSU. So LSU is going to be involved as well. Stanford, there's a lot of schools out there that are vying for Whit Weeks. Several schools, Tennessee, a bunch of schools involved. So I think Georgia has a really good shot with Whit when it comes down to it. Though he's a heck of a ball player over there for Oconee County. All right, Jed. So fastest wide receivers, John Adams, 88, fastest wide receivers 2023 that we may be on, meaning Georgia, who they may be on. You and I talked about, Santana Fleming, Jaylen Brown. I mean, I'm trying to think when you talk, it really, the qualifiers there is who Georgia may be in on, right? There's lots of guys that Georgia pseudo may be in on. I think it's a little bit early to dig in after they've already got guys like, DeQuavius Sorry and Raymond Cottrell committed. I think they're going to kind of go, regardless of speed level, they're going to go for the guys that are the more dynamic guys there right off the bat, like a Brandon Ennis, who's not necessarily a speed demon, but does everything well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at Jaylen Brown out of Miami. We talked about him before. It's pretty fast. Yeah, but I mean, you look at guys. I mean, Kirby Smart and the coaching staff, they're not going to want guys who are track guys, nothing else, right? I mean, that's not how these receiver offers work. They want
except
guys,
Arian Smith.
Yeah, except in the case of Arian Smith. So they maybe should have, gave him a little more milk or something before it came to Athens. But yeah, I mean, there a lot of these guys. I mean, Brandon Ennis is obviously very fast. Carnell Tate is a guy that's visiting Athens in March, according to some of our rivals, national guys.
Aiden Mizell too, that we talked
Mizell, yeah.
about. He
Aiden
can
Mizell,
get
I mean, he went from not in the last rivals rankings to now he's, I believe, 91. I mean, that's a
yeah.
huge. I mean, that kid is blowing up. So, yeah, I mean, he's another guy, and we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's still very early, especially with Georgia already having a couple of receivers. As a couple of receivers committed at this point. Raymond Cottrell is a guy who I think Georgia fans should be very excited about,
Mhm.
and has certainly been through a lot of stuff with his Instagram getting hacked and all kinds of stuff here lately. But Raymond Cottrell has his IG back, and he's ready to roll. So Maverick 4040. Can we make a serious push to land Reuben Owens and Justice Haynes? Yeah, I listen. Reuben Owens, being from Texas, having been committed to Texas, that's always going to be a tough deal. But Jed, Georgia is having success in the state of Texas. I mean, they've been able to go get guys like Dylan Bell. They've been able to go get Adonai Mitchell, A.D. Mitchell, who, he went his final year to Tennessee, but he was from Texas. Lewis Seen moved to Texas later on in his high school career and is from there. So, and then they just signed Andrew Paul, running back out of Texas as well. So Georgia has had some success out of the state of Texas, and I think Texas and Georgia are kind of in a fight for Reuben Owens.
Yeah, and don't forget Julian Humphrey too, in this class right out of Texas, right?
Yeah,
And
no
so,
doubt.
so yeah, it's gonna be tough, I think, because both Texas and Texas A&M are very involved. We all know what Texas A&M has done and is doing with the NIL money and all that kind of stuff. And actually, back in the summer when all this NIL stuff was kind of just getting figured out, Reuben Owens was one of the first guys I spoke with that mentioned NIL and saying, "Hey, yeah, Georgia's talked to me about it." So it seems like that would play a little bit of a factor for him. I don't know that for sure, but reading kind of between the lines there. So, but yeah, Georgia's in it as much as anybody. I mean, I spoke with Ruben's dad after they visited Athens in January, and he was like, "Yeah, they know how to treat you. They're running back you for a reason, and they love their running backs there. So that tradition's going to stand out a lot. It's just going to be a matter of can Georgia overpower the in-state powers, Texas and Texas A&M to get Owens out of Texas."
Yeah, and I wanted to flash these up here while we're looking at some of the YouTube. Barry joining us from China. We appreciate it, Barry. Good morning over there in China. Cy Morgan says, "What's up?" and go dogs. So Cy, we appreciate you joining us as well. Please put in those YouTube comments. If you don't already, guys, do us a favor: subscribe, turn on notifications. Absolutely free. Helps you know when all the content is coming out over here. And then we have one last question from our friend Pine Tree. Didn't I thought we might get through a show here without Pine Tree asking a question, Jed? But that wouldn't even have been right. Pine Tree is a staple here on the
Gold
show.
member.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Pine Tree wants to know: do you see us getting Samuel Mpemba, Nicholas Harbor, or Jaden Wayne in for a visit this spring, summer? I definitely think Jaden Wayne will make a
Yeah.
return visit. Georgia's going to be all over that. Nicholas Harbor, not. I mean, I'm not so sure. I thought things were going pretty good with Nicholas Harbor. Saw that interview with Adam Freeman. Not
Mhm.
much of the rivals. Not a ton of mention of Georgia there, but with the kind of speed that Nicholas Harbor has, you can rest assured that Uzo-Diribe as the outside linebacker coach, and Glenn Schumann and Will Muschamp, Kirby Smart are definitely going to try to get him in. And you would probably know better on Samuel Mpemba than I would. What do you think the likelihood of him getting in for a visit?
Yeah, I think the likelihood of those three is kind of in the order we just talked about him. Jaden Wayne, number one, Harbor two, and then Pimba at the bottom. Harbor, you got to wonder with the guy that's got that kind of track speed, how much would Georgia's track program come into factor in that recruitment and the possibility of running both and all that kind of stuff. But I think he mentioned he has three visits for sure that he's going to take. It's like Maryland, Penn State, and Michigan, maybe three schools in the Big Ten. So, yeah, I think Georgia's definitely going to get Jaden Wayne back. I would, if I had to say yes or no, I'd probably say yes. They get Nicholas Harbor back, and then Samuel and Pemba. You never know. But I'm not so sure about him.
Yeah, man, it's absolutely going to be exciting to see when things kick up after this dead period ends, and you're able to get back on college campuses as a recruit. We will have all that coverage for you on UGASports.com. Make sure to subscribe here. Like I said, turn on notifications. You can also catch the replays of this show on the YouTube channel and on the podcast version via the show as well. Guys, we'll be back at it next Monday night. Have Trent back with us. He had a late night this late day at work today, so had to go without Mr. Smallwood here. But we appreciate everyone tuning in. And thank you guys so much for the support. Like I said, subscribe, turn on notifications, and we will catch you next time on UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts.